These are the links I went through to play Xbox 360 in high school when my parents had the family TV occupied. We had one good TV in the basement, and it was the family TV that my parents frequently had occupied. I typically wasn't allowed to move the console, or at least the Xbox specifically at this point, because it was our nicer, newer console, but I had just gotten my first Xbox Live gift card, and I wanted to try playing Halo 3 online for the first time, at least at home. So I lugged my 360 up to my baby sister's room, the modem was under her crib, connected up the Xbox, and used my 3-inch GameCube portable screen in my lap to play. I never stopped playing Halo 3 since. I would have killed for something like the PlayStation Portal all throughout my childhood. It's why I loved gaming on Game Boys and DS systems so much, and dreamed of having a PSP at the time. Console-like experiences in the palm of my hand whenever I wanted, huge.
All the music you're hearing in this video is from our new Synthwave Christmas backing track album. It features some dope covers, some really neat original tracks, and it's all to get you in the Christmas spirit. It's now streaming on all streaming platforms. Downloads available at backingtrack.gg. I also wanted to let you know all of my major assets, my OBS course, my VHS Resolve pack that is used in this video, as well as my classic YouTube After Effects pack are 50% off with coupon code HOLIDAY50 at glitch.mov, my shop up there. Get my OBS course half off, HOLIDAY50 at checkout.
The PlayStation Portal's announcement was met with a flood of people asking, who is this even for? But having grown up dreaming of something like this, and now being able to being in the opposite position, I guess, as a dad whose kid uses our nice TV all day, and I can't just, sneak out to the studio to game instead of being a parent, the Portal is a perfect idea. I love this thing. Most of the time it delivers exactly what I had hoped for as a baseline, but there's a massive list of glaring issues, and it's just plain too expensive. I got to borrow a PlayStation Portal from a friend for a couple weeks, which wound up coinciding with my kiddo getting sick, so it was kind of the perfect time to catch up on my neglected PlayStation 5 using this thing. It's been fun. The Portal has been talked to death, so I'll try not to rehash what everyone has already said too much, so let's start with the good stuff, the things I really like about it. Pairing is super easy, easier than any other remote play setup for PS5, though a lot of the time when I wake up from sleep, it takes a very long time to get going again. In this case, it's because my PS5 shut down because our power went out, so I need to go address that. But otherwise, the pairing is dead simple. The screen is really great, honestly. It's only 1080p, it's only 60 Hz, it's not OLED, it's not even HDR, but it gets stupidly bright, but it's clean and clear and crisp. I honestly thought this was a much higher quality screen than the specs let on before seeing the specs, just due to the clarity and the size that it displays at. When you're not looking at compression artifacts, it's a beautiful view. Sure, OLED and high refresh rates might seem nice, but I think it's perfectly fine for what it is. The overall gaming experience is honestly great here. I played everything from Spider-Man Miles Morales, to Dead Cells, to Sifu, to even Destiny 1. Hell, I even tried a little Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered here for a bit. Yes, the input latency is not ideal for FPS scenarios. I'm super sensitive to it, and it isn't how I'd play them most of the time. But I was equally impressed that it wasn't worse than it is. It's got better feeling input latency than trying to play OG COD 4 on my parents' old 55-inch plasma TV back in the day. That thing made me motion sick from the input latency. And frankly, those of you without TVs with game modes or without it on or whatever may not even notice a difference. I haven't used them a ton due to playing around my kid or in bed and thus needing to stay quiet, but I've been content with the speakers on this thing too, honestly. Like, they're not amazing, but they're pretty solid. The weird thing is, I don't have a great Wi-Fi network set up, and I'm certainly not under ideal gaming conditions here. My PS5 is hooked up in my garage studio on the opposite end, as far away from my primary Wi-Fi point as it can be, though I do have a puck in here. I'm using the old Google Wi-Fi puck system, and when it comes to our phones or our TVs on our second floor, the Wi-Fi is not great. My network is a mess, and I constantly have issues with other devices. I didn't even plug Ethernet into my PlayStation 5 for this. And yet, outside of the first day and an occasional moment, the streaming experience has been kinda rock solid, far better than my prior attempts at playing on my phone. I had a backbone, I hated the experience, I hated playing on my tiny phone screen, I just hated all of it. It was a waste of money for me. This is pretty neat. The first day I hooked this up, however, even the main menus were blurry and blocky and everything was compressed to hell and stuttery. but since then it's run mostly fine. I rarely see any compression artifacting whatsoever that's like blatantly obvious, and y'all know my main job is literally analyzing video quality. The stuttering is kind of hit or miss constantly. Like it's always just dropping frames every once in a while. Rarely is it a huge deal, but it's one of those things where I'm constantly seeing a dropped frame here or there throughout all of playing that can be kind of distracting, but I don't think most people would honestly mind that much. But otherwise, the video tends to be crisp and clear. Like I said, the screen and presentation is great when the compression is working. But when it's not working, it's an odd mess. Like the other day, my wife was downloading a Baldur's Gate 3 update on their PC. And the portal was completely unplayable. If I were streaming something from the internet, that might make sense. I have gigabit fiber, but Steam updates do tend to tank your network without throttling. But here, my wife's wired PC downloading from Steam should not have any impact on my wireless streaming from my PS5 to the portal. The network paths are entirely different. It was super weird, but audio was super glitchy and it was just unplayable. The input latency was wild. There'd be like speed up and slow down moments. It was super crazy. There have been other small moments where the audio just glitches out, or that there's a brief bit of stuttering and input lag where I miss a web swing in Spider-Man, or just have to give up on trying Dead Cells for a little bit. But despite my honestly horribly configured network, I've had a grand time with this thing streaming wise. I was not sold on remote play being viable at all since like the PS Vita, and obviously the Wii U tablet that everyone keeps comparing to. I haven't tried doing it at someone else's house yet though, but this has sold me on at least playing it remotely in my house. The portal appears to be using HEVC video encoding, as that's what the PS5 uses for all remote play. If this Reddit thread is anything to be believed, it's limited to just 7 megabits per second encoding, but as standard remote play averages around 15. And I personally don't have much compression artifacting when I'm playing, so I'm not sure that that's accurate, but no one really knows yet, and I can't inspect it on the device itself. There's a lot of good to be said here, and honestly, if this thing was like $100, I'd buy it without question. The backbones are that much. $150, I'd be grabbing it at some point too, but $200, it's just too much for the limitations. Why can't we stream any media apps? Why can't it directly stream PS Now games? Why no Bluetooth audio? Why no web browser or ability to sign into public Wi-Fi? Why no PSP or PS Vita game support just as a throwback to reward players? There's just no end of missed opportunities here. It's understandable that people asked, who is this for? Because PlayStation has limited their potential buyer pool here for the portal by leaving out so much basic functionality that would make it more usable to just about everyone, rather than some super limited group of homebound kids and dads. It's nice to see the r/PlayStation Portal subreddit full of other holiday dads enjoying their portal like me too. That's been kind of nice, but it could be a lot more people. One big limitation that I really feel missed the mark here is the lack of support for PlayStation 4 at all. You can only use this with the PlayStation 5, even though both generations have very similar remote play configurations. Redditors have theorized that it's because the PlayStation Portal is configured only to decode that HEVC video stream, and the PS4 uses H.264 for remote play. But I don't think the hardware would only be limited to HEVC acceleration. Like, that's usually not a thing. It would also have H.264 support. So I'm not sure that I believe that that's the reason. These are limitations that are honestly insane of PlayStation to not have fulfilled, but my real issues with this thing are all physical. The whole thing is just built super weird to me. Like, think about how you hold a controller. Hold it in your hands. With the Portal, the screen is on the face of the controller, but the curve of the controller handles hasn't changed. So if you hold the controller like normal, the screen is basically facing the ceiling, not you. So then you have to awkwardly tweak your wrists towards you to see the screen. It's weird. It feels way worse than other handhelds because of the curve of the handles kind of driving your hand the opposite direction. Which, given this isn't an exact DualSense controller split in half, it does have smaller joysticks and stuff like that, it could have been fixed without needing to do crazy design adjustments, I would think. The screen also sits too low on the controller. I want it kind of to be in the middle to be more in line with the buttons and sticks for me, but that's just me. Size-wise, I don't have much complaint. People keep saying it's too big, but it's like the same overall kind of footprint or silhouette as my Steam Deck, and I don't really consider that a problem. I just wish they shipped it with a case or sleeve or something. Like with the Steam Deck, The curve means that it's comfortable to hold it like this and the screen is facing you. The portal tilts it backwards. I don't know. But yeah, I do wish it shipped with a case. It feels more fragile than my Steam Deck. But then there's also polish. You can hear the vibration motors and the smart rumble motors or whatever constantly adjusting for your smart triggers, which should never be heard in the first place, but you can constantly hear them and it's distracting. Like it feels like a generic poor quality controller if I don't have the volume loud enough to mask it. So I don't get it. Some moments in Dead Cells and Swinging Around in Spider-Man just have them constantly just adjusting. It's weird. The overall build is interesting. Obviously, the lack of Bluetooth audio support is frustrating, but as a wired headphones guy, I'm glad the 3.5mm jack is on the back here, although bigger plugs won't fit super easily because the way they kind of tucked it in. Don't know why they did that. The whole thing just looks like it could be built for a charging dock or something, which is kind of neat, but But the experience is a tad, I guess, disjointed. It's clearly a PS5 controller paired with a tablet. You only control the portal itself from the tablet with its own power and pairing buttons, and then the controls are only accessible from the touchscreen for the actual portal. Then you boot the tablet with its own power button, and then you have to press the PS button to turn on the controller and pair it. And when it says it's lost connection with the PS5, which it does every time I turn this thing on, you cannot control that menu with the controller, which is always confusing. Every time I turn it on, I go to, press the button on it. You have to use the touchscreen. It's like they're wholly separate devices, aside from the fact that the touchpad is being emulated by hotspots on the tablet itself, which, holy cow, is the worst thing about the Portal. It just flat out doesn't work most of the time, which is a huge problem in some games. This can be fixed in software updates, and IMO needs to be their top priority here, but it's really bad. Real bad. The second worst thing is the battery life. It's abysmal. For raw playtime, it's probably fine, but it drains absurdly quick while in standby mode with no real off mode available. Meaning if you turn it off to stop playing and you come back later, it's gonna lose way more charge, just overall battery just kind of sitting there than it probably did while you were playing. I don't know how they thought this was acceptable. It needed more battery, but it's not a useful handheld if it can't manage standby power well and has poor battery life. And this thing has both of those issues. This is one of my big issues with the Steam Deck and something that Nintendo actually kind of nails with all of their handhelds. My Game Boy Advance SP and my Nintendo DS both hold charges for years while off. Meanwhile, my PSP batteries have all swollen and busted out of their shells. Ouch. I know it's really popular to dunk on the Portal right now, and anyone I see speak positively about it has been mass shunned. But I love this thing, but I would not buy it for $200. And I think PlayStation missed the mark in many ways for getting better adoption for it. But ultimately, it's the console accessory that can't at all provide a consistent experience to all users in a way that consoles typically do. And that doesn't really make sense to most people. You buy a PlayStation, you're supposed to get the same performance and whatever as other PlayStation users. You can't guarantee that with a Wi-Fi based device. Most households' Wi-Fis suck, and this kind of device isn't going to play nicely with that, and it's going to reveal that fact. But it's the near perfect idea for what I need in order to keep gaming when gaming can't be my primary focus. I just hope that there's a Portal 2 that does everything better, but I'm not sure there will be. PlayStation needed to come out swinging here, and they may have well just shot themselves in the foot. It seems rushed, as it does seem like it was designed with bigger aspirations in mind. See, the airplane mode included on it, and had to be limited before launch. PlayStation rarely seems to miss IMO, but this was a miss for sure. I don't know what happened, but I'll be grabbing this the second I find one for like 50% off.
If you enjoyed this review, be sure to go check out my Lost Saves channel, where I've got a Liminal Musings gameplay commentary series. If you like watching gaming videos, I've got videos on preserving your game cartridges and your old saves, all sorts of good stuff over on Lost Saves. And remember to be kind, rewind.